Hello, listeners. My name is Charles Scott, and here we are again this fine weekend. I'm here with Charles Scott Jr.
How you guys doing this week? Tuning in to our weekly conversation we have every week, not just about real estate, but things that can help you with your daily life.
Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the things that have happened in the past week and some of the interest rates that are out there and the reasons why you should sell. Usually we're talking about why you should buy, but also we're going to talk a little bit about today about why you should sell if you are in the, let's say if you have an opportunity to sell and if you are looking to maximize the investment on your money.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was talking to someone last week and they live in a multifamily house, the mortgage is paid off, and they realized they thought the houses wouldn't be selling. They said, if I put my house on the market, I probably wouldn't get that much. I showed them some comparables. They said, wow, my house is worth that much? I'm like, yeah, and it's empty too? Yeah, you could capitalize on that equity.
So if you're out there and if you are sitting on some equity, you're sitting on a property, and if you do not plan on, going out and having to sell this property and buy another property, now is a good time to maximize your investment because you got to look at it this way. What a lot of people don't think of is real estate as an investment. I mean, that's what it is, especially if you already own a single family house and you bought another house and you wanted to collect the rents. That's an investment property.
Exactly.
You're not doing it out of the goodness of your heart just to create, housing for people. Because if that's the case, then you would just have low rents, keep it the way it is, not worry about making any money.
You break even.
Hey, get up in the middle of the night, go over and make all the repairs, cut the grass, shovel the snow, fix the house up, and not make any money, and just do it because you are such a good person that you want
Goodness of your heart.
do it out of the goodness of your heart. And I don't know of too many landlords that are doing it in a sense like that, unless in some cases where people have relatives living in the house. And guess what? Usually if there's relatives, they're the first ones that want to sell because they feel as though the relatives do not appreciate them, don't want to pay rent, or don't want to pay adequate rent. And so they're saying, I want to sell the house because my relatives are taking advantage of me and I'm not making any money on this.
Can't increase the rent, then maybe the grass isn't getting cut, they made a promise they would. A lot of things, there are a lot of factors in there.
So, today we want to talk about some of the things that you can do. In the last week or so, we were talking about inventory is low. What's happening? What's happening in the real estate market? Real estate market, people say, oh, the real estate market is booming. You're doing good. We hear about all of this stuff happening in real estate. The prices are up. But, that's not all that great because you have to have inventory. You have to have something to sell.
You have something to sell. I was going to say that. Yeah, you have something to sell because realize, even though the prices are still increasing somewhat, but the inventory isn't there. So, for example, you may say, I'm going to go spend the whole day with my realtor. We're going to look at all the houses in my price range. We're going to sit down and see. We look at the computer. There's only 4 houses. You can do that in an hour.
I can compare it to, go back about 2 years ago when, I was trying to buy a car, remember? And
oh, yeah.
I went to all of the car lots. There was nothing out there.
No cars.
I was like amazed. You go to and many people out there, you can relate to this. Even if you went to buy a used car, you went to buy a new car.
No inventory.
You go over to the used car lot or you go to the new car lot and you look out and it's like, what happened? They're lucky if they had 4 or 5 cars.
Yeah, right. Remember that?
There were no cars.
No cars at all.
The salesmen were just sitting around and there was nothing to do. You go in the door and they all come running up to you.
They want you to sell you, have you sell them your car.
They want you to, there was no inventory.
No inventory at all.
And it's still not too great because they didn't have the chips.
The chips.
We had whatever happened to all of that? Remember all of the ships were out in the ocean? The ships couldn't land. There was a price gouging, the shortage of inventory, what is it, in California where they were...
Well, that was the docks and everything. The thing is,
docks were all...
It's still going on, just it's not attractive news anymore. We have to move on to the next topic. So I'm sure these are still having trouble with the bottleneck, supply issues, the cars, but we're seeing it now in the real estate issue where there's not enough houses to sell.
And why is that? Let's see. Let's analyze that. Number one, land. You just don't go out and make land.
Can't do that.
There's only so much land that's out there, especially in your cities. In your cities, once the land is all built up and it's saturated, where do you go to find land? And whenever land is produced, it costs a lot of money. Now, when I say produced, maybe there was a vacant building that was sitting there. So someone bought the vacant building, they knocked it down, and now they got land to build the house.
Exactly. But remember, that's expensive too. People say,
Right.
I live in a city where, let's say, there's a bunch of factories from the 50s or 60s. They used to be a lot of jobs in the area. But people say, look at these buildings, they're eyesores. They say, why can't the city just knock these down and start building houses? People don't realize the soil underneath those buildings might be contaminated. There's a lot of things that go in with removing a factory, I would say, from an abandoned street.
Contamination. When you, years ago, whenever there was the cleaners had chemicals. They clean your clothes. Well, they didn't have all of the EPA and the OSHA,
All the rules and standards.
You know, you see the guy at night, he'd take all of the chemicals that were all, you know, used up or discarded, go around the back and pour them in the ground. They didn't start all over again the next day. So after years and years of pouring them in the ground, if you had a restaurant, they had the grease. They had the grease at the end of the day. They go into the backyard, throw it in the ground. It goes into the ground and then into the water table and disappears.
Think about these factories back in when World War II.
The factories,
Producing, I'll say, some particular places, they produce buttons for the uniforms and all the waste that comes from all that. They dumped it right in the river. I'm not going to say what city. Right in the soil.
I could say one of the cities. Well, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. Just about all the cities.
But people say there's so much land downtown with these abandoned buildings, but that takes a long time and a lot of legislation to have it cleaned up. And you have to have an investor that has enough deep pockets to work with the city, possibly get some tax breaks, make it worth his while.
Well, also, you got to look at it this way. If there's let's say there was a building on the land, and let's say the taxes were $10,000 a year. So it's been vacant for 20 years. So that's $200,000 in taxes that are owed on that piece of land.
Exactly.
Just on the building itself, $200,000. So now the city's saying, oh yeah, you can buy that piece of property as long as you pay us back all of the taxes that are owed on it. So you're like, give me a break, you know, I got to pay to knock it down. I got to pay to clean up the asbestos and the oil.
Everything in the soil.
That's another $300,000. I got to pay you $200,000 in back tax. By the time I finish, that's $700,000.
And I haven't even built anything yet.
And I ain't even build, and don't even know if I'm going to make a profit if I do build anything. So you know what? Let it sit there. And then the city, in many cases, they have to know where the owners are. And the owners may have formed a corporation 50, 60 years ago. The corporation could have had 25 members. Now you got to go track down all the members.
Exactly.
Where are they at? Where are they living?
It might be under LLC, and when those states where it's anonymous, you'll know who owns the LLC.
Right.
A lot of ways they do these.
It takes forever for the city to track down the owners. And then a lot of times people say, well, why doesn't the city just take the land and foreclose? Well, here's the reason why. If you've got a lot of abandoned buildings in your city, and the city just decides to take those properties, now if someone is out there, the kids are playing, someone falls, someone gets hurt, who do they sue? The city.
Exactly.
They sue the city because the city now owns the land. If the city does not foreclose on the land, the owner is a LLC or a corporation. If someone falls and they get hurt, now the lawyer's got to figure out, you know, the lawyer probably will tell you, look, it's not worth suing. By the time we figure out who owns the land, by the time we find, and it's not worth it. They don't have any equity. There's no savings. I'm not getting paid. So if I'm not getting paid, you're not getting paid. And it's a waste of time to even figure it out.
But what we're going to see, I'm going to say not in just Bridgeport, but other cities around the United States, you're going to start seeing developers start building up. You're going to see buildings in your downtown area. All of a sudden, now there's condos on top of that building. There's apartments. You're seeing a lot of places, instead of finding new land or creating land, they're creating, what I'll say, more units on top of existing buildings.
The other thing that I see is that they're starting to lessen up on the rules and the regulations regarding the asbestos, regarding the contaminations, because they realize, what are we going to do? We just can't let these eyesores sit here forever. So they're starting to, you know, put money into cleaning it up and also making it easier for a developer to go in there and fix it and buy it.
Exactly.
And they hold them harmless. If anybody sues, then there's only a certain limit that you can sue for.
Exactly.
They got to do something with the land. The land is just sitting all around, factories all around the place, and especially in the cities. Now, I have some friends, they just came back from North Carolina and Atlanta. They were saying, oh, they're building a lot of houses down there. Well, they have land.
Plenty of land.
The downside of that is that these are not cheap houses.
Oh, I was going to go to that route with the apartments. But yeah,
Tell them what they cost.
I was going to say, yeah, when you see a developer these days and what the economy is asking for, they're going to be building most likely luxury properties, whether it be a house, townhouses, condos, apartments. These are going to be high range, I would say up in the higher 600s, 700s. You're going to see that developers need to make sure that they have enough padding in case they go underwater. For example, they start building houses that, for first-time home buyers, 300, 400,000. Remember that used to be 200, 100? Now entry level right now is 300, 400. We're seeing that a lot, in this, especially Fairfield County. They're going to say, well, what if the materials cost more, the lumber costs more, the labor costs more? I might lose money on this deal. So what they do is they say, let's build a house 800, 900. For example, if the lumber costs more, then guess what? The house costs so much money, I'm still going to at least break even. That's what the developer wants, at least break even or at least make a profit.
Years ago, when I would get someone who was qualified for $200,000, I would think, oh, wow, this is great.
Oh, yeah,
this
right.
person here, I'd easily find them a home. Now I get someone qualified for $400,000, and I'm like, okay, what can we find for this person?
Exactly.
And everybody comes in now and they want to buy a multifamily. We want a two-family. We want a three-family. We want someone to help us pay the rent. Well, because what you want, you now set the price of those units up to $500,000.
Oh, yes.
Because the seller of the unit is thinking, well, I have what everybody wants.
Exactly.
And if I have what everybody wants, I'm going to charge them top dollar.
Exactly. They're going to charge top dollar, and they're going to say, look and I have tenants in place, and their rents are high. So what you see is when it comes to the multifamilies, you're going to be running into, I would say, not to discourage you, but it's going to be more, I'll say, not hurdles, but more complications, I'll say.
What it means is you got to start planning.
Exactly.
If you're out there and you're looking to buy a house, you have two alternatives: buy, don't buy, rent. But you've got to make a decision.
Exactly.
Sit down, get a piece of pad of paper and pencil, and look at it this way. Here's what encourages people to buy a house: high rents. High rents encourages people to buy a home. If you are renting right now, look at it this way. Maybe 15 years ago, you might have been paying $500 a month rent.
Oh, wow.
Then it went up to, I can remember having properties back in the 80s. My average rent back then was $750. $700 to $750 was the magic number.
Yep.
That was back then, and that was for
That
maybe
three-bedroom?
Yeah, 3-bedroom was $750. A 2-bedroom was around $600. That was in the 80s. Then you come up a little to the 90s. Then it hit up around maybe $800, maybe $800 then. Then actually, even going back as far as 10 years ago, you're still looking at maybe $800-900.
It was a plateau for a good, from 2000s to where we are now, just before the pandemic, I'll say.
Then all of a sudden, the pandemic, kicked in. The average rent was maybe, like even even some of the most affordable housing in the state of Connecticut was right around Waterbury, Connecticut. Waterbury, Connecticut, was unheard of for rents to hit $1,000, and this is going back like maybe 5 years ago. $1,000.
2017, 16.
Yeah, $1,000 was like, oh, that's a lot of money. $1,000. Then the 1,000 eased up to about 11, 12. Now you're looking at maybe around 1,400, 1,500.
Oh yeah, you're seeing basically. What I'm seeing is a lot of out-of-state license plates. A lot of people are moving to these cities, and they're coming with a higher salary, and they're keeping their jobs in the state they're coming from, and they're making these rents go up.
So if you've got a rent now, and let's say the rent is, and 1,500 is like your average, and then so you're looking at we're talking about coming all the way up from an average of about 600 to 1,500.
Wow.
And some people, when I talk to them and they're looking to go out and buy, I say, well, how long have you been living here? Oh, I've been in this apartment 22 years.
Oh, yes.
So
22 years,
22
24 years.
years, you know, they remember when the rents were like $600, $700.
And then what we do is sometimes we have people write down on a piece of paper, not to interrupt you, but they realize after all those years how much that they spent. They bought the house 2 times over for the landlord at least.
Oh, 4 times over if you figure out what it cost
Oh.
back when they started renting it.
Oh yeah, that's true too.
When they started renting that 3-family house, it only cost $70,000. That's what it cost back then.
Exactly.
60 to 70,000. Now it's selling for 350, 400,000. And you know, and within a matter of 10, 15 years, look at it this way: within 10 or 15 years, they actually paid for the house. So
Exactly.
now let's look at if you're paying a rent of $2,000 a
Oh
month.
wow.
So $2,000 a month. That's 24 months. So that's what's 240. That's 300. Wait a minute. That's $30,000 a year.
Just about.
10
Yeah.
times 20, 2,000. Well, it's 20. Yeah, 2,800.
2,000.
28,000.
28,000 per
So
year.
you're paying almost $30,000 a month in rent. So if you're there 10 years, you've spent what, 300,000.
Just about.
Yeah. So it's the same thing, just different time, different ratio, more rent.
Exactly.
If you stay in an apartment building 15 years, you've paid for the apartment. You paid for the house. Look at it that way. Look at it that way. No matter when it was, whether it was 15, 20 years ago or whether it's now, because now you're paying more
But
money.
remember, when the new landlord takes over the house, becomes owner, he's going to raise those rents to, I'll say, satisfy his mortgage and to have money left over. That's the whole goal. So think about it. Any renter, if you're in a house, a multifamily, whether it be the first, second, or third floor, after 15 years, you put enough money in that house that if you would have had your own property, you could have basically bought your own as far as equity goes.
Now, when I said, what do you do? Okay, you're out there now. Maybe you can't afford to buy a house. Maybe you can't afford to put all that money in. Team up with someone else.
Oh, yeah.
Everything else, find yourself someone who's paying high rent like you.
Exactly.
Look towards, you know, one thing about this recession, one thing about the economy is it's brought families together. Give me a culture that's family oriented, and I'll show you a culture that's buying up all the properties.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Give me a culture where family is the biggest thing, where they virtue family gatherings, where they have family organizations, where they have family meetings,
Exactly.
where people gather in weddings and showers and what do you call it? When people go away and they have family reunions.
Oh, yeah.
Where there's a lot of family involved, you will find a lot of home ownership.
Exactly.
Because as they get together and they get along, they buy property together. They live. Some cultures, you know, when they come to this country, first thing that they think of is opening up a business.
Oh, yeah. You see that a lot.
And the first thing they think of doing is, it doesn't take much to open. Maybe they cook. Maybe they're tradespeople. Maybe they fix other people's houses. Maybe they do house cleaning.
I'll say this. I've seen this with a lot of, I'll say, people that call me looking for apartments and houses that come from different countries. A lot of them come from the country already with the skills, like they're going to open a restaurant. How about this? The employees live with the owner of the restaurant. They all live in one place. They rent it out. And as they, I guess, meet their financial goals, then that person goes out and they get their own, whether it be a restaurant or investment property, and they branch out from there. But they all go back to the source, the person that brought them over here.
Not only that, what we see happening is that many of the owners of the businesses buy a property and put their workers up in that property.
Yes.
So that the person may own a restaurant downstairs and he may buy the 3-family house. And the workers that work downstairs live upstairs in the 2nd and the 3rd floor.
Yes.
And he rents out rooms, or she rents out rooms. So if you got 5 rooms, there's 5 workers, they end up renting out those 5 rooms, and they charge each person maybe $100 a week for
Exactly.
rent. So you got 5 people in 5 rooms, $100 a week. That's 500 times 4 is $2,000 a month that the owner is using to pay the building off, and also has his business in the building,
How about
and is
that?
making money from, maybe it's a little restaurant, maybe it's a little bodega grocery store, maybe it's someone who does sewing, you have to become more creative in this life and not
Exactly.
just think, well, I'm going to go out and find myself a job and I'm going to try and save some money and buy a house, because now you're making money, but your money is not circulating within your sphere of influence and within your family. It's going outside, and you never have an opportunity to save money. So
Exactly.
and when you think about opening up a business, many of the people that I'm talking about, they do not go to the SBA. They don't go to the bank
Oh, yeah, right.
and take out a big $300,000, $500,000 loan to open up a business. They get a little storefront. Storefront might cost them $1,500. Now they got an idea, and they share that idea with another family member. We can cook some cookies here, and we can
Exactly.
bake some pies and cook some cakes, and we can open up, and we can get a little sign up there, and we can go to the health department and get a permit, and we can get a license, and then we could take and get our cousin there to drive around and offer these cakes to the neighborhood.
Now, I was going to say that. Now, people may say, well, I'm already doing that right now. Maybe I do have a side business. I'm operating out the house. I'm doing this. But remember, when you go to the bank, they're going to want to see tax returns. I know dozens of people have businesses, but they don't file taxes. They just take the money and they spend it. You got to reinvest that into the business, buy more product, and pay taxes. Remember, the bank's going to make sure that you're a profitable business and that you're making money each year in order to loan you money. That's how it works.
Yes, exactly. So all of that money that you make and you spend that money and you don't put it back into your business, it doesn't help you.
Yes.
And also, you're doing it on your own. If you've got 3 or 4 family members helping you, one spends money on this, one spends, and the other 2 save their money. So you're able to, most startup businesses I watch on TV, and they always interviewing these, how did you start? Well, my mother came here and she was a good cook, and we started this over here in our kitchen, or we started this business in our garage, or we started this down in the basement, and we started doing this and the materials, and we all pitched in. And now they got 20, 30 employees. They own the building. They own properties.
Yep.
So what I'm saying is that don't wait for someone to give you a handout. Don't look for everybody coming in saying, well, what government programs are there out there to help me do this? Think of what programs you yourself already have within your community, your family. Pull some of that money, because if you're looking for what everybody else is looking for, it's like real estate. It makes it harder to find.
Exactly.
If you want what everybody else, and if you're waiting around for your dream ship to come in, it's like people say, I'm waiting for my boat to come in. And you say, well, did you send a boat out? Nope. Well, how are you going to wait for your boat to come in? You never send one out.
Exactly. You'll be waiting there forever.
In other words, your boat's out there going around in circles,
People realize you got to build the boat sometimes.
You got to have some control over the boat. You got to know what's on the boat. The boat might come in and have a whole lot of damaged merchandise.
Yeah, how about that one?
What's on your boat? What'd you order? What do you got to have a plan. You got to know what you're doing, and you got to have some kind of idea. And don't be afraid of failure.
Oh yeah, that's what I say. People
not be
they
afraid.
try once or twice, they don't realize it's a journey. It's more of a marathon than a finish line when it comes to entrepreneurship.
What we can encourage you is do not be afraid of failure, because what is it? A baseball player gets up there and if he goes at bat 10 times and he strikes out 7 times and hits the ball 3 times, he's a hero. He's batting 300.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be great.
Yeah, see what Michael Jordan used to say: you miss all the shots you don't take. So keep shooting.
That's a good one. You miss all the shots you don't take. So
exactly.
You got to get out there. You got to get out there and you got to take a chance. Hey, if it doesn't, first of all, you remember what I said. You're not going to the bank and borrowing $500,000 to go into business, and then if it doesn't work, you owe money for the rest of your life. You're going out there and you're using your own labor, you're using your own materials,
Exactly.
your own supplies, and you're putting in whatever money you have. If it doesn't work, start all over again. Maybe you had the wrong formula. Maybe you put the wrong ingredients in. Do it again. And if that doesn't work, do it again. Do it 5 times, 6 times. Just keep doing it. Don't give up. Try this, try that. Sometimes the timing is just not right. Maybe your product is great, but you got to keep trying and trying and trying.
Exactly.
Hey, you pay rent every single month for
Yeah.
20 years, and that to me is not a good thing. So you struck out every time you pay rent, and you pay rent 12 times a month times 20 years. So that's like 300 times.
Oh yeah, exactly.
You know that you've been doing that, or you know, so why not get out there and try something? You know.
Yeah, and also for people that may say, I have a full-time job and I want time to become an entrepreneur. Remember, like with that full-time job, if you've been on the job for at least 2 years, find another family member or a friend that you trust, and they've been on the job for 2 years also. Go to the bank together. You'll be surprised. So, I mean, we've helped some great, I would say, odd couples, like whether it be an aunt or uncle or someone that just say, I have a family member that makes a good amount of money, I make a good amount of money, or even I have a good amount of money. And you put those incomes together, you can buy an income-producing property, whether it be a duplex or maybe just a single family, you know, a large single family with an in-law. Maybe someone lives downstairs, someone lives upstairs. A lot of creative things you can do.
So that's, you know, become creative is what we're saying.
Yes.
You know, we can show you how you can get started. The rents are going to continue to go up. Don't expect the rents to go down. You got to start doing something. For you people out there that own properties, now is a great time to sell those properties.
Yes.
Take that, and don't just take that money and put it in the bank and let it gather dust. Look for opportunities. Maybe you want to go into a business. Maybe you don't have to borrow money. You got equity in that house. Take
Yep.
that money from that house. You know, maybe you're tired of fixing and repairing and doing this. So you know you got a trade. You got something you want to do. You know, sell the property. But again, just because you sell the property doesn't mean you have to go look for another property. Maybe there's a business, a side business you want to put
Exactly.
it in. And maybe you're tired of working, doing that 9 to 5. So now you have an opportunity where you can go out and you can invest some money and you can open up your own business. So we're saying, you know, open up your mind, become creative. There's
Yeah.
things that you can do out here.
Yeah.
And it's only going to be up to you. How do you think entrepreneurs got started?
Exactly. One more thing I want to say to people who are holding on to their properties that thinking maybe these prices are going to keep going up, going up. They will be going up, but I would say nothing goes up forever. There will be a peak where we hit. And once you see the prices start coming down, they come down quickly.
Quick.
Way quicker than they went up.
That's right.
And you're going to say, wow, I should have sold last year. Now I'm going to sell mine for this at a loss, or it's going to go down very fast. So
Right.
you want to make sure you take advantage of what we see right now in the market, and that's the time is to sell, I would say.
I just want to close by saying, call us. We'll come out. We'll look at your property. We'll give you a market analysis. We'll let you know what it's worth. You don't have to sell anything, but at least do
No, you do a free CMA.
free CMA.
No pressure CMA.
Get an intelligent view of what it's worth, okay? And we will do that for free.
Exactly.
So until next week, God bless.
Amen.